Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ms. presentation of Everything You Need to Know About Abortion Pills with Lauren Dubey and Melissa Madera. My name is Carrie Baker, and I'm a contributing editor and writer at Ms. Magazine and will be your moderator today. First, a few housekeeping details. Before we begin, all attendees are muted, and the video will be primarily focused on our presenter and her slides. Should you have a question, please type it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We'll save time for questions before the end of the webinar. Also, if you experience any technical difficulties, please type that into the Q&A and our team will help assist you. If for any reason you get disconnected, just click the link again. Okay, so to begin, in 2000, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the abortion pill, mifepristone, to be used in combination with another medication, misoprostol, to end an early pregnancy. The Guttmacher Institute estimates that in 2020, 54% of all abortions occurred with abortion pills. During the pandemic, telemedicine abortion with pills became widely available for the first time, leading to changes in the FDA policy to permanently allow this practice. Over 20 states now have telemedicine abortion providers serving people in their states. Just last week, the FDA issued procedures for pharmacies to become certified to distribute mifepristone for the first time, which Walgreens and CVS says they'll do soon, making the medication much more widely available. Now that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, increasing restrictions on abortion are making abortion pills more important than ever. 13 states now ban abortion and 18 states ban telemedicine abortion. But post-Roe will not look like pre-Roe because of abortion pills, which are a game changer. Last week, the Department of Justice ruled that mailing abortion pills to people in red states does not violate the federal Comstock law. People in red and blue states are now ordering pills online and using them in the privacy of their own homes without having to take time off work, travel long distances to clinics, and pass through anti-abortion protesters to get the care they need. But how do abortion pills work? Are they safe? And how are people getting them? How do they get them if they live in red states that ban abortion? These are just a few of the questions we'll answer today. Today, we're joined by two amazing reproductive justice health advocates, Lauren Dubey of Choix and Melissa Madera of Plan C. Lauren is co-founder and chief nursing officer at Choix, a telemedicine abortion service operating in California, Illinois, Maine, New Mexico, Colorado, and Virginia. Lauren has extensive experience in full-scope sexual and reproductive health as a nurse practitioner, but has focused on abortion care. She's passionate about being at the forefront of innovative, tech-forward, safe abortion care via telehealth and wants everyone to know about medication abortions available online. Melissa wears a lot of hats in the abortion world. She's founder and director of the Abortion Diary, a podcast and only audio archive of abortion stories. And she's also an independent consultant, a special projects consultant for Plan C, a researcher on Project SNA, Self-Managed Abortion Needs Assessment, and the former director of research and partnerships at Choix. Lauren and Melissa, I'm so glad to be here in conversation with you today. And I know that everyone's anxious to hear what you have to say about abortion pills, especially in this time of crisis for women and others who are able to become pregnant. So Lauren, I want to start with you by asking you, can you tell me how abortion pills work?
Sure. So thanks for introducing them so nicely. Mifepristone and misoprostol are commonly known as the abortion pill. It's actually two medications that are taken together to end a pregnancy in the first 11 weeks or early in your first trimester. The first medication, mifepristone, works by stopping the hormone that helps feed a pregnancy or helps it continue. And misoprostol works by does two things. It dilates your cervix, and it also can cause uterine contractions to help you pass the pregnancy, and it induces bleeding, and that's how you how the abortion is done. We at Choix also provide medications to support both any side effects that you may experience, such as pain or nausea.
So are abortion pills safe and effective?
They're super safe and super effective. The regimen of mifepristone and misoprostol overall is about 95 to 98% effective. It sort of varies based on the route that you use it, because there are a couple different routes that you can administer misoprostol, that second medication. And also the effectiveness varies slightly based on how far along you are, but they're really, really safe and effective overall.
Is telemedicine abortion as safe as if you went into a clinic to meet with a doctor?
Yeah. So one thing that's been really exciting, the rise of telemedicine abortion services such as ours has helped illustrate how safe and effective this is. And we know that getting a telemedicine abortion is just as safe and effective as getting an abortion in a clinic where you might have to wait, where you have to have potentially other invasive services done, where you may have to cross protesters. So we know that the safety and the effectiveness, and now it's even sometimes maybe more preferred.
What's the difference between emergency contraception and abortion pills?
Great question. So emergency contraception is commonly known as Plan B, or the morning after pill. And that medication doesn't do anything to an existing pregnancy. It can help prevent an unwanted pregnancy if you have unprotected sex at a time, you forgot to use a condom or birth control failure. So that's how that pill works. The abortion pill is for an existing pregnancy. So if you have an unwanted pregnancy, you don't want to continue it, you take these two medications. But emergency contraception will not do anything if you're already pregnant. It's intended to prevent pregnancy.
Okay. So why would someone choose telemedicine abortion with pills as opposed to like a procedural abortion in clinic? As an alternative.
Yeah. So there's telemedicine abortions with pills. There's an in-person or in-clinic abortion with pills. And then there's an in-clinic or hospital or surgical center procedural abortion where instruments are used to remove the pregnancy from your uterus. And they all have their benefits. I would say that telemedicine abortion is something that maybe if you have a hard time figuring out when you might have a day free from work or childcare, a telemedicine abortion can be done after hours on your phone in the privacy of your own home. Nobody else needs to know what you're doing. And you can submit a request, you can have an evaluation, you can receive your medications, all without having to disrupt your regular schedule. Whereas a procedural abortion maybe takes a little bit more time and requires an appointment, and maybe it requires travel. It may require a couple different things. However, a procedural abortion can happen just in one day, where a medication abortion, whether you get your pills from a clinic or via telemedicine, happens over the course of a couple of days. So it really is dependent on your situation, your lifestyle, your preferences.
So how does Choice work? Like, how does somebody get care from you, and what's the process?
Yeah. So most people find us through the internet. They search for how can I get abortion pills, and they sign up. So you submit an initial medical questionnaire to our service at any time, and then we review them on an ongoing basis during normal business hours. If you're approved to proceed with care, we'll actually send you either text message or email links to proceed with next steps. All of our care at Choice is asynchronous, meaning it doesn't happen in real time. We don't require a video or a phone visit. We'll send you links to proceed with signing consent forms and completing the final payment for our service. And then once we get that back from you, we'll send your medications to our partner pharmacy. It's a mail order pharmacy based in Southern California. And they will then, once they receive the prescription, they'll package up all your medications and they'll ship them to your door. Once medications are received, we ask the patients to check in with us and say, hey, I got my medication and this is when I plan on taking it. Once we know when you take your medications, we'll then send you a follow-up link to make sure everything went as planned and that you didn't have any sort of unexpected side effects or complications after taking the medication. If everything looks good, then we'll schedule a 4-week follow-up visit where we'll instruct you to take a pregnancy test at that particular time, or you'll follow up with us and say, hey, I got my first period after the abortion. I think it's complete. Throughout the entire process, people have access to patient care coordinators and nurse practitioners or nurse midwives during our regular business hours, and as well as supporting clinical staff, physician staff. So we have a team behind you every step of the way if you have any questions outside of any of those normal scheduled visits.
And how much does it cost? Does it cost the same as if you go into a clinic to get an abortion?
No, it doesn't. So at Choix, right now, the cost of care with us is $299. However, we do offer a sliding scale, so people can pay less if they're not in a position to afford that cost, and they can pay more if they're in a position to help offset the cost for someone else. In-clinic medication abortion in person can often be way more expensive than that if your insurance doesn't cover it or you don't want to use your insurance. But also in some places, insurance may cover the cost of an in-clinic abortion, medication abortion. So it really varies. However, we know that often, even if people have insurance that may cover a medication abortion, they might choose us because they would have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for a medication abortion visit in the clinic. Whereas with us, they can submit a request and potentially have medications within 2 days.
So you respond pretty quickly, and then if somebody's eligible, you mail the pills overnight or within a couple of days?
Yeah, so we have options. You can choose to pay a little bit extra for an expedited shipping process through our mail order pharmacy. Otherwise, people generally receive the medications with regular shipping in about 3 to 5 business days, regardless of location, but you can choose next day shipping and have them within the next day. So if it's very possible that if you submit a request for pills on Monday, your pills would be in your hand by Wednesday.
Do you work with local pharmacies? Could you call in a prescription to a local pharmacy? Now as soon as that's allowed.
Theoretically, yes. So there's a couple different hoops that we'll have to jump through as providers and pharmacies to make sure that there's a good partnership there. But yeah, we could potentially prescribe these medications to be picked up at a local pharmacy. There's still a lot that we don't know about this yet, and it's going to unfold in these next couple of weeks and ahead of us here. But it is an exciting prospect that someone could get them the same day as a consultation with us if we were to send it to a retail pharmacy like CVS or Walgreens.
Right. You mentioned that it was a sliding scale. Do you take insurance, or do telemedicine abortion companies take insurance?
At Choix, we do not accept insurance right now, but it is definitely in the works for hopefully sometime later this year.
Okay. Are abortion pills hard to use?
No, they're really, well, I should be a little bit sensitive and reserve judgment. As long as you don't have any problems swallowing pills, the mifepristone pill is not a huge pill, but that first pill that you would take, although we've got lots of nifty tips and tricks for people who do have a hard time swallowing pills. And then the misoprostol is also not that hard to take at all. It actually is a dissolving medication. So either dissolve that one in your cheeks, kind of in the pocket between your cheeks and your gums, or it can actually be inserted into the vagina, and then the pills are tucked all the way back near your cervix. That method can sometimes be preferable for people who have a lot of nausea. Sometimes it can make people a little uncomfortable if they're not, if they're worried that they're not putting the pills in far enough or something like that. But they're otherwise pretty easy to use.
And what is the experience? Like, what does it feel like to use abortion pills?
So I'm sure that Melissa will have some great things, maybe some input on this, but the experience really varies from person to person. It varies a little bit based on if you've been pregnant before and had a delivery of a pregnancy. It may be dependent on your pain tolerance, but the guidance that we tend to start with for patients is that it is probably going to be more painful than menstrual cramps. And, then people have different opinions about if bleeding is gross or if bleeding is comfortable or uncomfortable. But, it can be an uncomfortable process for a couple of hours, but we do our best to make sure that you have what you need in order to be the least amount of uncomfortable throughout the process.
And can women under 18 get the pills through Choice?
So in some states, yes. In some states, we do require either a parental notification or parental consent in some cases. We find that this is obviously, it's not evidence-based. A 16-year-old can have a safe abortion, just as safely as a 26-year-old. So, but yeah, we do our best to make sure that we're able to work with people no matter how old they are, although there are obviously state laws that we need to be able to abide by.
Okay, great. Someone asked in the chat, could you use the pills Friday night and be ready to go to work on Monday? Like how many days do you have to sort of take off?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So yes, I would say absolutely. If you were to take the medication, the regimen that we recommend at Choice, the soonest because you have to space the medications apart a little bit. So the soonest you could take the mifepristone, let's say Friday morning, that first medication, we really don't anticipate it will cause any side effects at all. So, it shouldn't really cause cramping and bleeding. It might. We'd never say never, but we don't expect it to cause very many symptoms at all. So then 6 hours later is when you could take misoprostol via the vaginal route. And there's evidence showing that you can even take the medications closer together. But right now we recommend 6 hours apart. And then we give you a few hours, or we give you up to 24 hours. We expect the onset of bleeding to occur within that first 24 hours after you take misoprostol. But most people start bleeding within a few hours after that. The heaviest bleeding should be within that first 24-hour period after the second medication. And then after that, the bleeding and cramping should lighten up a little bit. So yeah, if you were to take the medications and have bleeding Friday night, give yourself Saturday to complete that 24-hour period, recoup Sunday, you could be back at work on Monday.
Does it, there's a question in the, does it always work? Like, is there sometimes it doesn't work, or does it always work?
So you'll notice I didn't say it's 100% effective. I think you had asked me at the very beginning, 95 to 98% effective. So there, is that 2% chance that it might not work. And when we say it might not work at all at ending the pregnancy. And that just sometimes happens. There's other situations where it may partially work. Like, let's say the pregnancy stops growing and doesn't continue, but your body doesn't get rid of the contents of your uterus. That would be a situation in which, maybe the medications didn't work completely. But yeah, it's not 100% effective.
And then what do you do in that case?
So it depends on whether it was a completely, what we would call like a failed medication abortion or an incomplete abortion. And we would usually refer people to one of our partner clinics in any of the states where we operate, or back to their OBGYN or primary care provider to manage them if that's what they choose. Occasionally, people will get ultrasounds and come back to us, and then we can manage them with a little bit more medication, that misoprostol. But it really just depends on what the outcome is in that situation.
Do you give people pills in advance if they just want to have them on hand in case?
Yeah, so Choice is really exciting thing that we do called advanced provision of abortion pills. So let's say that you're just a regular sexually active person who is pretty sure that they'd like to have some pills on hand in the event they became pregnant because they wouldn't want them. It's kind of, we see it similar to having a plan B, just in case you have unprotected sex, you want to take it to prevent pregnancy. You have these pills on hand, just in case you have an unwanted pregnancy in the future. So we do offer advanced provision. And then in the event that you were to become pregnant, you could come back to us and say, hey, I am pregnant. I'd like to use these pills. And you can have full clinical support with Choice throughout the process.
What's the shelf life of the pills?
They obviously they all have expiration dates on them, but I happen to know that when I was working in clinic and I would see the expiration dates on the box, they lasted like 2 years, I would say. Okay. So for mifepristone, so you've got a pretty long shelf life with it if you should need to use it during that time period. Misoprostol might be a little bit less of a shelf life, but that's also dependent on the lot in the pharmacy. But all medications are always marked with the expiration date on it. So always be paying attention to those expiration dates.
Great. So I have one more question, and then I want to go to Melissa for a bit, and then we'll come back. can a regular doctor, like not an OBGYN or reproductive health doctor, can a regular doctor prescribe abortion pills? Or does it have to be like someone like you who specializes in reproductive health?
So as of right now, any provider who has an agreement with the manufacturers of mifepristone, so that's Gen BioPro or Danco, you just have to have an agreement and, and agreeing that you know how to prescribe and manage patients who use this medication. So it can be a nurse practitioner. I'm a family nurse practitioner. So my training is men, women, and children and across the lifespan, and I can prescribe this medication. We work with primary care providers who can prescribe this medication. We work with nurse midwives. So it does not have to be an OBGYN or a women's health nurse practitioner or a reproductive health nurse practitioner. It can be anybody who is interested in prescribing and managing patients using these medications.
Great. And somebody did just ask in the Q&A, what states do you serve?
California, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Maine, Virginia. I got that right. 06,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, Lauren, thank you so much. You're like a wealth of knowledge here. So we'll come back to you in a minute, but we're going to turn to Melissa now. And Melissa, I want to start by asking you, how can people find abortion pills?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of ways to access abortion pills, and you talked about some already. Of course, you can go to a brick and mortar clinic where you would have an in-person visit with a clinician. You would get the pills, take them home, and then you'd take them at home. But of course, if you live in a state where abortion is banned or heavily restricted, you may not have access to a clinic and you may need to travel. And then nowadays, very exciting, as Lauren has talked about, there's telehealth for abortion. And that's thanks to a lot of advocacy, evidence-based research, and actually the pandemic really sped things along and getting us there. So with a telehealth provider, you would have a consultation online with a clinician on your phone, on a computer. Like Lauren says, at Choix, they do texting, and that's what, people like that. It's easy. But sometimes some telehealth providers do video visits, some you do an online consultation, and then they'll mail you the pills and then you take them at home, right? And there'll be support through phone or text. And then there are brick and mortar clinics that also provide telehealth as well. So it's kind of a hybrid system like Whole Women's Health or CaraFem. And so you can get telehealth from them and some other, in-person, some, brick and mortar clinics as well. And then of course there's aid access. I shouldn't say, of course, a lot of people don't know about aid access, but I do know a lot about aid access because I did also a lot of research with aid access, interviewing people who used aid access. So aid access is a telehealth clinic that provides abortion pills in all 50 states, and they started providing care in 2018. They're based outside of the US, so they're kind of just like, it doesn't matter what the law is, we're going to send those pills anyway. So they'll send them to you, and it's there are physicians involved, right? So you do get care from a physician as well, and all you have to do is go online, do a online consultation, and if that goes well, they'll send the pills as well. And then another option is online pharmacies. Some of them are international, some of them are US based. They will sell abortion pills online without a prescription. There's no medical screening and no medical advice. They'll just put it in the mail and then you'll get it at home, and you can use them at home. Plan C pills is a great resource because they have vetted online pharmacies and telehealth service. So if you go on their guides to online pills, you can just, look at what, go on, You're prompted to put what state you're in. It'll give you all the information on different ways to access pills, including these online pharmacies, and give you information on whether there is some sort of restriction in your state or anything to worry about in terms of laws as well. So those are a bunch of different ways to access pills.
Great. Somebody asked in the Q&A, what if you can't afford it and you need financial support? And you mentioned aid access. Do you want to talk about their cost?
Yeah. So aid access has a sliding scale. They actually ask for a donation, and I believe now it's 105 or 150. It depends on what state you live in, but it is sliding scale. And for some people who can't afford it at all, they will send you the pills anyway, even if you can't pay anything. So you can just go online and let them know, like, I can't afford it, and they will still send the pills. Or you can say, I can afford $40 and send them $40. So it is a true sliding scale, and they will still send you the pills. Yeah. And I think also there are a few funds that are specific for online abortion providers or telehealth. So you can look out for those as well. I think the Abortion Freedom Fund is one of them. And then I think ReproCare also.
Okay, great. So I've also heard about mail forwarding. Could you talk, some people use that, right? If they're in a red state and they're trying to access pills from a US-based provider?
Yeah, so if you are in a state that has banned abortion or has heavy restrictions, you might not be able to get to a clinic. You might not be able to directly get abortion pills from a telehealth provider, because actually even before Dobbs, there were states that had banned telehealth for abortion care, right? And now if you live in a state that has a complete abortion ban, you cannot just order pills as easily as someone who's in New York or California, right? If you're in Texas, you can't just order those pills in that way. You could use aid access because they send them everywhere, but maybe you just want to get it through a US-based provider, and it's also faster through a US-based provider, right? So you could use creative ways like mail forwarding. You can also, for example, mail it to a friend that lives in a state and then get that from your friend, right? Also, because I don't work for a telehealth provider, I can say this. Most telehealth providers are not checking IP address. There's only one that I know of who does that, right? So they only know what you tell them. So if you're in Texas and you want to order from a telehealth provider, I won't name names of providers, but if you want to order from a telehealth provider that only can ship pills to certain states like California or, Virginia, for example, then you can do the consultation in Texas, just not say that you're in Texas. Mm-hmm. And then all you need is to provide a physical address in that state. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people really do put their foot in their mouths when they provide more information than necessary. If no one's asking, don't offer the information, right? Yeah. So that's another way, but you didn't hear it from me, but now this is important. You did hear it from me.
Right. So what if someone's self-managing an abortion, like they order pills from a pharmacy online, what if they need to talk to somebody? Are there resources to support people?
Absolutely. If you have medical questions, you can call or message the miscarriage and abortion hotline, MNA hotline. And they have clinicians on there that volunteer their time to provide this service for people who are managing their abortions. And actually, it's not just self-managed abortion, right? And I guess I should give a definition of that because I don't know if we did that part. But right. So self-managing an abortion means that you are getting, and we're talking specifically about medication abortion, right? So self-managing a medication abortion, and you're getting abortion pills outside of the formal healthcare setting. So you're using these online pharmacies. You might get it from a community network. You might get it by going to another country, because the country like in Mexico, you can just go to the pharmacy and get misoprostol, right? And you might bring it back and use it at home. So there's people who are self-managing, but even if you're just having a medication abortion and have questions, you might want to have this information as well, right? You might be getting it from a clinician and might, it might be like really late at night and you just want someone to talk to, right? So you could call the miscarriage and abortion hotline, and they will provide you with the care that you need and answer your questions. And then if you have legal questions, you might want to go online and check that if when housed repro legal helpline. And so you might have questions about your state. What are my risks? Is this legal? Should I do XYZ? And like, you can get all the information you need to make the decision that is right for you. And I think that is very important, right? For everybody to have all the information that they need, and they themselves can decide how much risk they want to take and do what is right for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So much great information. So somebody asked in the Q&A, what if you don't have a credit card and you want to get pills online? How do you do it?
Wow, that is such a great question. And I've thought about this, and you know what? I don't have a very good answer for that, right? Because a lot of these places don't accept something like Venmo, or like, even when I was doing research for aid access, there is a way that people have to pay, and some people just couldn't do it that way because they didn't have access to the certain app or felt weird about using something that wasn't PayPal. So like sometimes if you ask, you can use PayPal at some, with aid access. But I think every different telehealth service has to figure out how they're going to accept payment from people and what ways are going to make it easier. Because even if you're like a 16-year-old girl or person, who's pregnant, you're not going to have a credit card, right? Or a debit card. So it makes it really, really hard to get the care that you need. And Lauren might have answers to that in terms of like, how do you accept payment so that people who don't have access to credit cards can do it? Like for aid access, you could just say, I don't have a way to pay, and they will still send you the pills. But other telehealth providers may not do that, right? So that's something to think about and talk about more. What are ways that we can help people access care who don't have something like a credit card or even a bank account? Because one of the ways that people had to pay was through a service that had to do with your bank account. And a lot of people don't have bank accounts, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good question, and it's something we should talk about more. Absolutely.
Okay. So if, that somebody in the chat said gift credit cards can be used. So get a gift credit card and then use that is one way. So in that rare circumstance where there are complications or you need to go to an in-person caregiver, can a health provider tell the difference between a spontaneous miscarriage and a medication abortion?
No, they cannot. And again, don't give people more information than you need to, or they ask for, right? So, and even if they ask for that, you can decide what kind of information you're going to give them, right? So no one can tell, or a health provider cannot tell the difference between a miscarriage and getting it, whether you self-managed abortion with pills from an online pharmacy or whether you went to a clinic to get pills or a telehealth service, right? So they cannot tell, and there's no exam, there's no test that can tell whether you have used abortion pills. And one of the things I would also say is that if you're going to self-manage your own abortion using pills, then you should not put the pills in your vagina. Right. So like, don't dissolve them vaginally, because it might leave remnants. So then when you go to a clinic or to the hospital, then a provider might see that there are still pills in your vagina, and then we'll know, right? But if you use them orally, as Lauren had mentioned, then all you have to do is, if they haven't dissolved fully, you swallow them. There's no evidence of anything at all, right? It's gone. So it's really important for people to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it a for people in red states, is it a risk legally, like if they do this? Because most of these laws prohibit doctors from doing abortions, but there's not many states have laws against people having abortions. So is this legally risky?
Well, I am not a lawyer. So with that caveat, as I said before, right? There are laws. There obviously, if people lived in states where abortion is banned, or if they lived in restrictive states, then they might need to worry a lot more about legalities. But we don't know how these laws will be enforced, right? We do know that some people have been criminalized in the past for self-managing abortions. I think if when Howe had said maybe 60 or 61 in like a 20-year span from 2000 to 2020. So we know that it happens, right? But the truth is, like, the law is kind of gray, and we don't know how law enforcement will react or what they will do. So it's just important to know your risk and then decide how you're going to act or behave or what you're going to do based on that. We also know that risk has to do a lot with like your own personal circumstances, right? And who you are as a person, your identity, your gender identity, your immigration status, race. So like those are important things to people are going to think about, because some people are criminalized more than others, right?
Absolutely.
So the truth is that we can't tell people what to do based on what might happen or what the risk is. Only people will know what they want to do or can do. And so that is very important. And I think right now there's only 2 states that even have self-managing an abortion on the books as like illegal, right?
What 2 states are those?
One's Nevada. And I want to say, I wrote down a note to myself because I didn't want to forget.
I think it's South Carolina.
I think it's South Carolina. Yeah, I think, So Nevada and South Carolina. Yeah.
So I want to ask you one more question, and then I want to go to Q&A. Are there things you can do to search securely online for abortion pills? Like, if you're worried about, any sort of people finding out, is there a way to do it where you don't leave a digital trail that people could use?
That's so important to think about, right? Because we leave digital footprints everywhere in our lives. We are online all of the time. And most of the time, we're not even thinking about it. So like in many ways, technology is great. It's given us telemedicine. It's given us a lot of things that have really like opened up access, but in other ways, it's not so great, because those digital footprints can be used by people to then have evidence against folks, right? Though I do know that it's not really even the digital footprint that is getting people in trouble, right? It's who you're telling. It's the provider at a hospital who is reporting you, right? But it's still important to think about that, right? So a secure option is like, make sure that you delete your browser history also when you're like going online looking for something. And a great secure place to look, again, is Plant C Pills, right, on their website. But then don't leave that digital trace behind when you're like searching, right?
Well, and Digital Defense Fund, we just put in the chat, is a great resource for this, and also Electronic Frontier Foundation. They have guides about how to search securely online. So I want to bring back Lauren, and we have some questions in the Q&A. And actually, Lauren, I want to start by just saying, how late into pregnancy can you use abortion pills?
So the FDA has approved mifepristone up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, and many providers use it off-label up to 11 weeks of pregnancy.
Okay, great. And I know the World Health Organization has approved it through 12, I think.
Yeah, and that's a different regimen, but that's not common. That's certainly not used in practice at Choice, and I'm not aware of it being common, all that common here, just because of the limitations on the FDA approval for mifepristone.
Okay. Okay. What happens if somebody does use them after 12 weeks? Is it dangerous, or is it not effective, or what are the risks of that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think how to answer this question with it. It's kind of it could be any one of those things. It could just not work, because what the World Health Organization, the regimen and the amount of medication, and particularly the misoprostol that you would need in order to pass a pregnancy past a certain point, is more than what we're prescribing. So if we calculate the gestational age where you're actually further along and you took the medications, more often than not, it just doesn't work. But it's also possible that you fall into one of those categories I had kind of spoken about earlier of being like an incomplete abortion. Now, at any point, if we suspect that happened, or you went to a healthcare provider and it was found out that you either had a continuing pregnancy or an incomplete abortion, your options would be discussed with you at that time, which includes, but is, not limited to, potentially, if it's an ongoing pregnancy, continuing the pregnancy, a procedural abortion done by a healthcare provider in a clinic or something of that nature.
Okay. Okay. Somebody asked, can you take these pills if you're on the pill or other birth control medication?
Interesting. Well, we know people get pregnant while they're on birth control, right? Whether birth controls, they missed a pill, they took one late, or just sometimes pills don't work. And it happens. Not to say you shouldn't trust your birth control pills, but just on occasion, it does happen. Mm-hmm. So we generally recommend that people stop taking their pills because it's not preventing you from getting pregnant if you're already pregnant, and that you restart your pills after you take your misoprostol. So you just take your pause because at some point you became pregnant while you were on them, you take your abortion pills, and then we counsel people that if they believe their medication abortion was successful, they can start taking their abortion or their birth control pills the day after misoprostol.
Okay, great. Somebody asked, how do you date a pregnancy as far as the number of weeks? How do you know how far along you are?
So our intake questionnaire is really comprehensive at getting at people's menstrual and sexual histories. So sometimes it's as easy as I get our period every 28 days. We can date it by their last menstrual period. Sometimes it's not that easy. And we get really, really awesome information and feedback from people that choose to work with us and helping them figure out when they got pregnant and then how far along they may be in pregnancy. So while the quick answer is by dating using a last menstrual period, not everybody has regular periods. Some people maybe were on birth control and only had sex one time, so we can use a date of possible conception, things like that.
Okay. And is telehealth HIPAA compliant?
So our platform is, we actually give people the option we use a HIPAA compliant texting platform. We're not texting people from our cell phones. So we use a HIPAA compliant texting platform, and we have a online EHR, electronic health record. And we use all of the stopgaps that we need in order to be HIPAA compliant, multi-factor authentication, things of that nature. And we actually give people the option, you can opt into secure texting or regular text messages. So we don't just text people without their consent. We ask people when they sign up with us if you would like a regular text message, because if you leave your phone out on the table, anybody could potentially see that message. We do have the option for people to use secure messaging. The platform that we use to text people has a secure function that requires a username and a login so that you can then download that app, log in and see it. But if you're okay with getting those messages to your phone, we are HIPAA compliant on our end in sharing information with people.
Great. So Melissa, I think this question's more geared towards you. So a lot of people want to spread the word and help other people get pills. If they do that in states like Texas that have these aiding and abetting laws, is it legally safe to, and some other people are threatening to prohibit talking about abortion pills. Is it dangerous to share this information legally?
Again, I am not a lawyer, but you are, Carrie.
But I'm the moderator, so I get to ask the question.
So One of the things I would say is that, and I've always thought this, is like the only way that we are actually going to give people the information that they need before they need it. The only way that we're going to destigmatize abortion is talking about it, right? So that's one of the most important ways to help. You might not have money, you might not have time, but you can spread the word by just sharing it, right? So even if you're just generally talking about abortion, that is something. And that also signals to people that you are someone they can ask for help or information if they need it in the future, right? So first, I would say that. And also, like, when you're sharing information, you're not giving advice, right? You're not giving medical advice. You're not telling people what to do. You're saying some people do this, or a way to get abortion pills is that. So, so it is a way to provide information to people, and that is a great way to get this information out into the world. Or even just saying, like, I heard that people go on Plan C to find information about abortion pills or about how to access abortion, right? So like the legally risky part, or like, is it aiding and abetting? I don't like to give too much credence to laws that are unjust already or illegitimate. So I'm not going to give it that much weight in my life, because you give it weight and it becomes that. So to me, our role is to give information when and if we can. And again, this is about you deciding how much risk you want to take, right? Everyone, all of us. My risk tolerance might be more than others. And so I'm going to continue to give all the information that I can to everyone that I can give this information to,
Plan C has these really handy dandy
Yeah,
little stickers. I don't know if you can see them.
exactly.
But you can order them from Plan C and put them on, inside bathroom walls or on bulletin boards. They have a number of them that are, so you can go on their website and order them if you want to spread the word. Also, people spread the word on social media.
Yeah. And like bathroom stalls are a great place for stickers, or just anywhere that you happen to be. Even a coffee shop, you just leave them. And then that's a way of spreading the word without saying a single word, actually, right?
Absolutely. They have these stickers that have a Q code, and I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
Need to be unpregnant, and you can scan the Q code, and that'll take you to Plan C's website. Great. Yep. All right. Another question. I know that people say that abortion pills are safer than Tylenol. Tylenol's obviously on the grocery shelf, the pharmacy shelf. Do you ever think that abortion pills will be on the shelf next to Tylenol since they're safer than Tylenol?
Hopefully. Hopefully very, very soon. But yes, but that's probably a Lauren question.
Yeah, I mean, do we want them to be, or will they be, or maybe two separate questions?
Or should they be?
Or should they be? For safety and effectiveness, there's very few scenarios in which taking them is truly unsafe and threatening to your health. We hear a lot of things thrown around, and the anti-abortion movement love to use those as reasons why it shouldn't be more widely available. But we know that it's so safe and so effective. Honestly, I think that if it were more widely available, the biggest problem is that people would potentially be taking it inappropriately, thinking that it would end a pregnancy maybe further along, or not knowing that they maybe need the 2 medications or what have you. So I think that as long as abortion remains as stigmatized as it is in this country, as evidenced by recent affairs this past year, I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. But the best we can do is, again, spread the word on the different ways to access pills, and continue to expand into the states where, as a telehealth provider, and into states where we can continue to do this within the framework of healthcare and supporting people in doing so.
Right. Here's a question from the Q&A. If I have the pills on hand and a friend gets pregnant, am I allowed to give them the pills to use?
I'm going to have to, as a healthcare provider, I'm going to say that when someone prescribes you medication to use, they're intended for your use, mainly just out of safety for that other person. You don't know if they potentially have a health condition that might make it unsafe for them to take one of these medications. You don't know if they have allergies to the medications. So that's my, in general, if you want to be getting these pills for you to hang on to so that you have them in case you need them, share with your friends how they can get pills to have on hand in case they also need them. And if they need like a safe place to store them, maybe you can be that safe place for them to store your pills or their pills. But in general, we say, hey, it's a better idea not to be giving, you shouldn't be giving these pills to other people.
I'm not a medical provider.
Right. So here's another question. Someone asked, isn't misoprostol alone, can't that be effective too? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we know that, there have been people all over the world that have been using misoprostol alone to, induce abortions. The reason why we don't use it, and this is just like a very medical answer, but if you could take 12 of these pills, right, and they're still less effective than 5 of these pills, we're going to choose within the healthcare setting to give the medication that's the most effective with the least amount of side effects. Misoprostol as a solo regimen causes quite a bit of side effects for people inducing an abortion with just that medication, and it can be really unpleasant. And again, we don't want people carrying unwanted pregnancies to term or any further along than they need to be, but we also want to provide the safest, most effective, and as comfortable as possible regimen that we have available to us with all the research available to us. So that's why it's not more widely used.
So Melissa, I know that misoprostol is just more accessible because it's not so heavily restricted. Are people using for your research on self-managed abortion, are people using misoprostol alone effectively in the U.S. now that abortion has been banned in some states?
We did not interview people who only use miso, but there is some research being done on miso alone, and there has been research done on miso alone, and so it's not effective at all. I think the last I heard was like 85%, and actually might be higher in recent studies.
Yeah.
So it is effective. And for some people, that's all that they have available, like around the world. We know that people have been using it around the world for decades. And it began with people in Brazil noticing that this was something that could be used, right? So we know it works. We know that people use it also later in pregnancy to the second trimester too. So I think that we need to really think more broadly about how we use abortion pills and how we offer abortion pills to people. It's also cheaper, right?
Yes.
So, and this is important, right? And it's also important if you do live in a restricted place and that's all you have access to, then what we need to do is provide enough information for people to be able to do it as safely as possible, just like we do with medication abortion, self-managed medication abortion with MIFI and MISA, right? So we're providing information and people can use it safely. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more question, and this is kind of hot off the press, so you may not know, but I heard today that some sites are selling abortion pills have been using technology that shares information with third parties like Google. Is there a way to access pills online without having my data shared?
I am not the data specialist in the room, but we are not sharing that information. I'm not sure if is this coming from like other like the retail pharmacies?
I assume I should have read the article. I saw it, but didn't read it. But I think it's that, like, if you are using Google to share if you're going on these websites, somehow the websites are sharing that you went on them. I mean, my response would be use a virtual private network.
Yeah.
Use one of these search engines that doesn't record your address. And then, like Melissa said, be careful to remove any sort of search history or other things. But I think that going to the Digital Defense Fund and the Electronic Frontier Foundation are good resources for finding out how to best safely and privately search. That said, I've heard those organizations say you can never be 100% guaranteed that you're not leaving a digital footprint.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and I'm not going to speak for other companies, but as far as I know, nobody, and Choix is not selling any data. We're not sharing any data with anybody. And I would venture to say the same about our colleagues in this space as well. Okay,
great. Well, thank you. Well, I'm just in closing, the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a wake-up call and a reminder that we need to take charge of our own reproductive health. Abortion pills are a key way we'll continue to access safe abortion despite increasing barriers. We hope we answered your questions and you took something meaningful away from this that you apply to your life and share with your networks. We'd like to offer you a free year of Ms. Magazine as a thank you for attending tonight. The link to redeem your free year is in the chat. We at Ms. Magazine love to stay in touch, and the easiest way to do so is to sign up for our weekly news alerts from MsMagazine.com, a place where feminists engage with each other and the world for action and social change, where we cover reproductive justice, elections, and other issues on a daily basis. I want to give Lauren and Melissa a chance to close it out. Do you have any final thoughts?
My final thought is always the same. Talk about abortion, share about abortion, share information, and just frankly talk about abortion to destigmatize, and also just like work towards making sure that people have the abortions that they need in the way that they want it, and respect everybody's decisions around their own abortion experiences. So
great.
And go on plantcpills.org and get information. And get stickers. All you have to do is go online and order them.
Stickers.
Yeah, very well said, Melissa, as always. I think that it's important to know that in places and in states where a healthcare provider is able to support you in your abortion process, whatever that one looks like for you, just know that your providers are here for you. There are allies all around you that are here for you, and your abortion is yours. No one can take that from you either.
Yeah. And I want to just make one last comment, reiterate what I said early, is the Department of Justice just issued an opinion saying that the United States Postal Service can deliver abortion pills by mail, even in states that ban abortion. And so they will continue to go through the mail if you need them. And I just want to thank Lauren and Melissa. You are a wealth of knowledge, and just thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing it. And thank you everybody that came here tonight. It's obviously a hard time, but if we stick together and keep fighting, I know in the end people will get the care they need. So thank you very much. Good evening.